Okay, well, it's 6 o'clock. You guys ready? Okay, well, I'm going to call this meeting to order at 6 o'clock. Is there any adjustments to the agenda? I would like to propose that due to the fact that Tara needs to be at a 6:30 meeting online with Granville and Hancock, that we actually move her 8.4, the budget, and 9.2, the audit, to before the reports to the board. So we can.
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Perfect. Is there any other adjustments to the agenda?
First executive session.
Okay, so the
Yeah, 12.
first executive session has been postponed till next meeting. So we will just have a second, just one executive session. Okay. And then 9.2. Okay, is there any, okay, so we're looking for a motion to approve the minutes of Monday, November 4th, 2024.
Second.
So I do have a request for an update. There, if you look at the end of the meeting during public comment, Keith Splecki had asked a question, but there is no response actually given in the minutes, so I'd like to amend it to add that the board has expressed interest in leasing the space, but has not come to any formal agreements with the town.
Yep. I'll amend the motion to include the modifications.
Second?
Second.
Right, to accept the minutes with the amendment. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Tongue twisted here. So moved. Okay, so is there any public comment? Seeing no public comment, is there any board comment? Great, so we're going to now move on to 8.4, which is the budget.
So the first page in your packet is the revenue budget. Only adjustments that I've made initially, again, these are very preliminary. I don't have all the details yet from the Agency of Education that we need. So I've updated, we're using a 6% increase on the potential tuition rate until we can get closer. As you recall, announced tuition rates come out January 15th. So I won't actually have everyone's announced tuition rates until then. Okay. So we're using 6% as a placeholder in all the tuition line items, with the exception of vocational on behalf of payments. That's your tech tuition on behalf. I've just left that flat because I get that number from the Agency of Education when they usually send out their 12-1 information, which I haven't gotten yet.
That's the tech tuition on behalf, you said?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, because they tell us what the rate is, and then I receive, the second part of that is what our percentage is for our 6-semester average, and that's what determines all of your vocational.
Okay.
So I'm just waiting for that.
Right.
So right now, it's just what it was last year. Act 60 related transportation, I bumped that up to 40% of the FY24 contract for the projection there, because that's based on what we spend and what we report in our stat books at the end of the year. And then the only other update I made was to the school-wide CFP Title I to be in line with FY25 funding. And then you'll see that I've put a substantial increase in for the Medicaid reimbursement from the supervisory union to cover your nurse. So that increased from $60,000 to $97,000 to cover the salary and benefits of the school nurse. Okay. So that will obviously be updated. There's no carryover showing on this one, this version of it.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So none of that stuff, because we haven't had that conversation at this point. So So that's the quick rundown on the revenue budget.
And so the tuition for the pre-K, there's 6. That's just what we have now, or that was just a guesstimate of what we might
Rough
have? It's just a rough average?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll get those fine-tuned closer and closer as we
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, as we get closer, and that's also the rate that I get from the Agency of Education's letter is what the tuition rate is for preschool. So that's again bumped up 6%, but I don't know what it will be.
Okay.
2 questions. One
Yep.
is on the RSUD budget for 2024, 2025. That is the actual budget, not proposed, is that right?
Yep, sorry, I just didn't change proposed.
I thought so.
Okay,
but-
thank you.
And secondly, the increase in the educational spending revenue under Act 68, is that number to balance out our first draft of our expenditure budget?
Yes,
So that, because it's a big increase, that increase assumes that if we had our expenditure budget as is, and we need to raise that money
yep.
to.
So your education
To offset.
spending is your expenditure budget less your offsetting revenue. So this formula takes out, so we don't have the $100,000 general fund surplus transfer, so that's automatically $100,000 out of there for your actual local revenue. That's one of the numbers that goes into it. We have a slight reduction in the tuition revenue. So those are factors in where, and then the increase in the expenditure budget.
But the goal in this presentation is to have it balance out revenue and expenses.
You have to balance, yes.
Yes, to have to.
Whatever you don't collect in local is what you collect in property taxes.
Right. And just for clarification, the pre-K tuition revenue, is that from sending towns or is that from the state?
That's from sending towns.
So sending towns
Yeah.
pay
Yeah.
pre-K now?
Yep.
Partial, not full.
It's like the
For 10
$3,000
hours.
that you get for the 10 hours that the state pays.
That's what I was wondering.
That's the
There's-
tuition revenue.
Okay,
Yep.
so where's that revenue in here?
That's the pre-K tuition, the
That's the pre-K
24,000.
tuition?
Yep.
Okay. And then the balance of it that comes from the town is also in that same number?
That's part of your ed funding.
Oh, comes in ed
'Cause
funding?
we only charge 10 hours. That's all you get for preschool tuition is the 10 hours.
Okay, so the 10 hours that we get
If you
from,
charge extra, like then that becomes like aftercare, which is outside of the general fund, which is what some of our other districts do.
Right,
But the
okay.
only tuition revenue that you receive is that 10 hours that the state pays.
from the state?
Yep.
So not from sending towns for pre-K? Okay, thank you.
So like if you have a student coming here from Granville Hancock, for
Right.
example, Granville Hancock is paying you that 3,000 per student.
They're paying the 3,000 and then the state is paying the 10 hours?
That's the 10 hours that the districts are paying. That's
Okay.
the
Not
state
money
sets.
So
from
what?
that.
Yes.
It's not really money from the state. Right.
So it's
no money is
yes,
coming from the
yes.
state?
So it's Granville Hancock, the state sets the tuition rate for the 10 hours.
Yes.
And the sending districts pays the receiving
have to pay
district
that. Okay.
that 10 hours.
And is it still choice for preschool?
Yes.
It is. So if somebody, if a child within our district goes to another preschool, then we
Yeah, and you'll
pay
see
for
that
it.
you also have tuition for preschool
Okay, thank you.
in your budget.
Got it. Oh, okay. We'll see that as a line item in here later. Okay. Okay, great. Anybody else have any questions on the revenue side of this budget?
Yeah, just health insurance went down more than, it was, last year we started with like 16.8% increase. And this year, is it around 11 or what?
I started at 18%
Oh,
in
18,
first
excuse me.
draft, and the announced rate was 11.9 on the gold CDHP
Gotcha.
plan.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Great.
So on the expenditure budget, this is your full line by lines. So you already had seen your student support budget in draft 1, salary and benefits, contracted services. Draft 2 is when you saw all of your general education, salary and benefits. So this puts all of that plus everything else into it. You'll see the biggest increase overall is in that first section, almost down towards the bottom, which is the section on your secondary tuition. So the increase right now, using a 6% increase to the tuition cost, based on the 1126 enrollment that we were working through for ADM, and then Lindy worked with your sixth grade students to find out what their first choices were for their next phase of their education. So we have used those into the tuition budget, which I gave you separate so that you could see where the breakdown was per district, where students were going. So right now, that projected increase is $262,188. And you'll see I have that note right there for you on that first page.
Yep.
SU assessments.
But which line is that actually
So it's
in?
all of them. It's 561, 562, 563, 564.
Yeah.
That is dependent on where they're going. So Vermont LEA is a Vermont public school. Non-Vermont LEA is an approved independent private school. That's your 563 code. Your 564 is your secondary out-of-state private. And then 566, that's the tech paid on behalf of, so that's the same number.
That's in our revenue.
Yep. And then the 567, that's your tech center tuition. So that is, again, that's going to be based on your 6 semester average when I get
Right.
that number from the state and what that tuition amount is that the state we pay. And then the next line down was new when we changed over our chart of accounts, which is object code 568. And that's tuition because we have to break out now LEAs within our supervisory
Oh, okay.
union. So that's what that line item is.
Okay. Quick question about the tuition to the tech schools.
Yep.
Is it just one tech school that we pay, or is it a bunch of tech schools that we pay, and is it all bundled into that same line?
All into that same line.
I think we have.
And if you look on the tuition budget
Yeah.
breakdown that I gave you, I show you where your students are attending vocational education. So you got
Right.
Hannaford Career and Technology Center, Randolph, Stafford, Riverbend, and Hartford Area Career and
So
Technology Center.
each one of those is providing us with a 6-semester
Six-semester
rolling
average.
average, and all of those are in that line item.
Yep.
Thank
That
you.
changes, obviously, once I get the 6-semester
Right.
average report from the Agency of Education.
Right, because
So right now, it's just bumped up 6%.
Yeah, okay, I understand that. That is the 6% right there. Okay, great.
So then, SU assessment, all the way through the budget, you'll see I have a note will be adjusted upon approval, because that's still, we don't have this year's ADM yet, and that's one of the factors that we have to have, ADM and enrollment, to get our assessment percentages, so that's gonna be changing. And once the SU budget is approved, hopefully later this month, and then hopefully we'll have all the information that we need to update our assessment percentages.
I'm sorry, back to tuition.
Yep.
The increase, is it due to increased students, or is it more because of increased?
Both.
It's both, but it definitely increased students,
So if
that
you
factors into that as well.
Turn to the tuition budget itself, you can see.
Does it compare from
Yes.
last year?
Yep.
Okay.
Gives you what your FY '25 budget was, gives you what the 11-26-24 enrollment is, and then the projected number of students that Lindy works through and
Okay, so that's the
provided.
projected, right, okay.
So we have 68 currently budgeted.
And so you're saying, yeah,
Right
here,
here.
68 currently budgeted.
There's 77 projected next year.
And 73 is what's counted in our current enrollment.
Those are the current kids that are being tuitioned.
Yep.
And this,
Not all residencies confirmed. but
Yes,
We have
okay.
been identified 73 current Rochester-Stockbridge Unified District students
Okay.
in the tuition pool as of November 26th.
okay,
And you have 11 seniors exiting, you see I have that note right down there, and 14 sixth graders entering the tuition pool.
yeah. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I knew the information was probably there somewhere.
No, it's important to understand, because that's one of the factors that
Right.
we don't have really any ability to make adjustments once we
Exactly.
have all the confirmed numbers. So it's important to understand where those numbers come from.
Yeah.
So then on page 2, what we were just talking about halfway down that first section, you'll see again, object code 561 and 562. That's what we have budgeted for preschool students
Okay,
that
yep.
are going either to a Vermont registered school preschool or a private preschool. So it looks like you got 2 in another registered public school and 1 potentially in a private.
Okay. Great.
So the only other big changes that I made on your line by lines is if I saw something that was really wonky as far as where your actual spending was in fiscal year '24. If there was something that was extremely over budgeted or something that was overspent, then I made small adjustments on those line items.
Okay. Do we pay all of the childcare tax, or does the employee have to pay part of
We
it?
pay 100% of the childcare tax because it's not in our collective bargaining agreement.
Okay.
So we were not allowed to charge that to our staff.
Okay, thank you.
And that's something new you'll see in each
Yeah.
function code. Last year when I did the budget, because we didn't have the codes yet, the childcare tax was rolled into your FICA.
Okay, yep.
So you'll see your FICA lines look like they're down a little bit, but then there's the childcare tax. So I just broke those 2 line items out for this budget cycle now that we have all the coding.
Well, it started July 1 of this year,
Yeah,
right?
and so in fiscal year '25, in our system, like in our expenditure
yeah.
reports, it's
I see.
already there, but it
Okay.
wasn't there when I built the FY '25 budget, because
I
we didn't
see.
have all the information that we needed from the agency to build the coding.
Okay.
So then the other big change that you hadn't seen yet is on page 6 of 7 of the expenditure budget. And I just wanted to explain that, because it looks big when you look at it, is actually under your operations of buildings for your supervisor salary and then your salary general for your custodial staff. So I have moved one of the custodians that was in the prior supervisor salary code down to the general code because we brought on the custodial supervisor in fiscal year '25. So that's why 181 looks higher, is because we did bring that down, and then you did hire for fiscal year '25 a custodial supervisor. So that is what's in line item FY '26 is that. and
Can you
then-
just kind of say that again?
Yep, so we had 1.5 custodial staff
Okay,
in fiscal year '25 budget.
okay.
So you'll see you got the 49 and the 20,000.
Yes, okay.
So that one that was in the FY '25 budget got moved down to the 181 salary general.
Okay.
Because you brought on a custodial supervisor that's overseeing both buildings now.
So we increased
So-
staff by 1?
Yeah, so you've got the
Okay.
1.0 and the 1.5
Okay,
for that.
so we increased, we hired, and that's, right, that's one
That was a full-
custodial supervisor for both buildings?
Yes. Yep.
Okay,
And you didn't see that in your other budget drafts, so I just wanted to make sure to point that out, that that is an addition of a 1.0 FTE in fiscal year '25. Also in this budget draft, you'll see right down at the very last line, I backed out again the $28,000 that we had in there for the fuel oil for the high school.
okay.
And then the other big change is on that last page, and it's a $10,000 increase, and that is the increase to your transportation assessment based on the contract for fiscal year '25-26 with STA.
Okay, which is also, we get, we get some revenue from it though, right? The
Yes.
transportation?
Yep, that's the home to school transportation, the Act 60.
Yes, home to school
Yep.
transportation.
Yes.
Okay, and then this is the
Yep, this is the expense.
Okay.
Yep. So overall, right now, your expenditure budget is up $558,073. using what we've been using all along in draft 1 and draft 2, what that 1 cent on the tax rate was in FY '25, with no other factors. So this isn't including like offsetting revenue or anything. This is truly just the expense at 17 cents.
Increase. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a lot. And you said this is quite rough?
This is first pass, so I'm
Okay.
looking for feedback. Like Lindy and I need feedback from you all.
Yeah. I think that is a pretty big increase to ask for, honestly. So I really do hope we can dial the numbers back. I mean, the $558,000 increase is substantial. I know the cost of living has gone up, and I know there's a lot of factors. But that would be my thoughts. Please, comments, board?
Yeah, no, it's, I agree. I mean, certainly drastically higher compared to following years. But then one of my other concerns is, we know we have an issue with the buildings needing a lot of work, as many throughout the state do. And fortunately, we had a surplus last year, so we were able to use that, and we're getting some work done. But it concerns me that, $60,000, I know it's something, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not a lot to put away for everything that we need to do to these buildings. But
Right.
again, you can't ask for more. So, I don't know. It's
Yeah.
tough.
I don't know, it might be nice, maybe for our, we do have like 1 or 2 more drafts, right?
Yeah, you guys have
Okay.
time, because you
Well,
don't
maybe it
go
would be
until May.
nice
so-
as a visual as well for us. I know when we get to printing our book, we do the pie chart that really kind of shows overall, what percentage of our budget is going to different things. And it might be helpful at this point for us to, if it's easy enough to do.
Oh, it is, yep.
Okay,
Yeah,
to be able to
yeah.
just kind of see,
Really digest it visually that way.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what are we trying to target as far as increase? We're going to have an increase. So we're saying 17 cents now. What do we think is doable?
And again, we don't have all the other factors.
Yes, absolutely.
Right,
So,
and we
I
do,
mean,
Are you
that's our
saying, what do we
challenge right
think
now, is we don't
taxpayers
have-
will allow?
Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
we need to give her some realistic feedback.
yeah, yeah.
I'm not necessarily asking for an answer right now.
I know, but
That's
it is the
something she's gonna need.
There's not a lot of places that, next to tuition, typically most of our funds are staffing.
right.
So you could provide the direction of what it looks like to reduce based on configurations next year. There's probably a potential to look at that based on numbers.
Okay.
To look at configuration, you're saying?
Meaning, right now, the plan is to keep staffing of classrooms status quo, but there's only projected like 5 kindergartners coming into Rochester next year. So that would be a K-1 potentially. We haven't had these conversations yet. as
Right,
staff,
right.
But, and the idea was, I didn't want to reduce early, because that felt
Yeah.
like I was setting
Yeah.
myself up for failure. But to split apart a 2nd and 3rd grade group that's been combined for a while, but they really only each have 9 kids in them to make a class of 18. So, I mean, I could explore that avenue of what it looks like to reduce a teacher, essentially.
Right,
Well, it's
so,
interesting you say that. So that
Go ahead.
memo that we had to read listed what the state suggests per classroom, per teacher, right?
Right.
And so for us, that means, we're looking at it as a combined class, right?
Right, so the tricky part about that is
Yeah.
that was single grade,
Yeah,
right?
that's where I
And
was a little
multi-age,
gets still,
it's not explored the same way as a single grade level is, because I
Yeah.
think it's few and far between outside of rural Vermont. So, right, we're not meeting those quotas in some of our configurations currently. But people are teaching 2 grade levels, so it's a little different. There's a balancing act there. It's just, that would be a direction you could give for what does the side-by-side look like if we took one teacher out of this budget.
Tara, what's your rough estimate of hopefully some sort of a surplus at the end of this fiscal
I
year?
have your surplus already. That's your next action item is to approve your.
Excuse me?
I have your surplus already. It's your next action item to approve your audit.
That was a question I had.
Yeah, I think I saw it in the audit. It just wasn't clear.
$382,932 is your unassigned fund balance at the close of
382.
fiscal year '24.
So one of the strategies would be to, or one of the things, when we look on the revenue side, is to utilize some of that money. Okay. Last year, we used some of it for operating and a bunch of it for capital, as I recall, under Patrick's leadership, and I think that really made sense because it's harder and harder to do as we move forward. So that's one thing.
But we do have that
On the
revenue
revenue side,
available.
just thinking about what's a responsible utilization of those monies. The other thing is that in the board development, in our packet, there was a very interesting page about how boards should be looking at their school budgets. And I think they had 8 or 9 criteria. And I think we might utilize that as a kind of a checklist in considering what sort of increase is absolutely necessary. I think we all stand firm is that we're not going to gut our educational system.
Right.
But that would be a good thing to go with Tara, Lindy, and Jamie, just making sure that those
That would hit those.
criteria, we've got those things covered.
Yeah.
And what if we could do that what if game of moving on cutting expenditures and but I think we all need to know what is absolutely required to give a quality education to I mean, I think that's our moral responsibility. And it's something, we're not going to do it tonight, but that's something for us all to look at. And if you have in your packet what I was referring to, it's from the Vermont School Board Association. And if you look on
Oh, there it is. The end.
page 10, you can see questions that board members
Go to
may
the end
want to
and go up
focus
one.
on.
Yeah.
Another thing that we need to keep in mind is, and we don't know yet, is, though I think the December 1st letter is out, I was going to ask Tara what she thought of it, but
I have not had a chance to read it yet, Bill. I just saw it before I left the house to come here. I have not had a chance to
No,
read it. I just saw it came in when I was leaving the house to come here.
another thing is that they're going to have a penalty if we
Yes, the
exceed.
excess spending
And
penalty.
that was dropped for the last couple of years. Now they're reimposed it under legislation.
Is it the one that they gave in the example of that letter?
Yeah.
It's the 16?
I don't know.
Because it was 16,000 in that letter. And so
Yeah.
I was wondering if that was just an they were giving it as a random example?
I think that wasn't set in stone.
Okay, that's
But
not
we're going to
clear.
need to be aware of that because one of
Absolutely.
our traditions has been to try to keep our budget within the cap.
Yeah,
But that assumes that it's a reasonable cap. you know.
right.
So there's a number of moving parts that I think we're going to need guidance from Jamie and Tara and Lindy as we go forward. I think what I heard was that we're going to have to, all those factors are going to have to cut that increase to some extent. And your question is a good one. I'm not sure any of us have a
Well,
good handle on it.
What's the reason for the penalties? What's
Excess-
the driver behind that? Is that the
Just
state
keep-
almost trying to force small towns into consolidating?
It's been on statute, I believe, don't quote me, but I think it's been on since like the original Act 60, I think is when it was
They're
introduced.
trying to drive,
And it's to control education spending, your per pupil spending.
Try to
And
keep
when
your
you,
tax rate down.
yeah, and when you go
Yeah,
over
yeah.
it, like it's, trying to put that cap so that you don't have $30,000 per pupil spending
Yeah.
type of
Yep.
thing.
And when they took it away last year, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's when you saw a lot of,
Out of bigger budgets.
right. I mean, one thing we've done all along is even though we staff some folks with ESSER money, we were building that into our budget, so it wasn't a
Right.
sharp increase.
Yeah, we didn't suffer the
Right, so we-
ESSER cliff like a lot of districts
A
did
lot of
because we had
districts struggled.
planned for it to go away.
Right.
We identified what was important to us and we budgeted for it throughout the following years.
Yeah. Do you have, jump to Grandpa Hancock? Okay, go ahead.
In the charts, they make, in this VSBA letter, refer to the count per, of pupils enrolled per staff. Do we have a rough figure
Of our per pupil, pupils per staff
Yeah.
ratio? Do we have a?
Say that again.
The ratio of staff to students?
I don't have it off the top, but I can.
That's the.
This one?
Chart that he was referring to, Robert was referring to.
I don't have something like that now, but we can bring you
Yeah,
that
is-
next time.
Yes, that'd be great.
Okay. So,
This is a very old chart, but
Yes, it is.
it's 2019.
Yeah.
staff to student ratio, do you want it
Just a rough. We're-
by just classroom teacher? There's a lot of avenues.
Right. Well, what is
Just
it?
classroom teachers, staff to student ratio. Do you want specialists included in that?
This is,
Like,
I think this is a soup to nuts, all staff.
all staff. Okay, that's why I asked. Figured.
Well, we don't, they have says data source digest of educational statistics analysis by JFO, whatever that is, joint.
Yeah, I mean, we have to take a look at this.
So look at
Where they
that.
came up with this.
Yeah, before we can compare us to them, we need to know
I
what
don't know,
to.
right.
Right.
Both buildings combined or separate?
Yeah.
I'd say just combined.
Combined, it's our whole system.
that's our budget.
And then how
That's
do
what the
you
budget's
want-
about, is the total
I'd also
staff to
like to
students.
put tuition down there at the bottom, right? Like X number of tuition students, meaning,
Yes, the people who tuition, the kids that we are tuitioning out.
right, the kids that we were tuitioning out. And also, right, like there's a little asterisk next to that staff to student ratio of the number of kids that come in. Does that make sense? Because they should in theory offset some of the costs. I don't know how you want that. I'm just asking all the questions that pop into my head to make
I
sure.
think the bottom line is what the bottom line
I
is.
think,
Okay,
I think the
that's
bottom line would be students in building to teachers in building.
Okay.
Well, not necessarily just teachers.
I'm sorry, staff in building. That's what I'm sorry, I used the wrong, but in building, staff that's,
Okay.
that has contact with the kids in the building. Not necessarily the kids that are going to high school that are not in our building.
Got it. All right.
And it's a general, right? It's a, we're just.
Yep. I just wanted to ask all
Yes,
those
no,
questions. There's a lot of ways
You don't want to, we don't want to, right, hang your hat on that number.
Yeah, I can put that together. That's not hard.
So it is, I am encouraged by the fact that we do have 300 and something $1,000 in a fund balance, though.
382.
Sorry, what?
382,000 and some
382
change.
and change. And if you notice on our budget,
Surplus.
it takes $32,000 to change 1 cent. 32, almost $33,000, because 32,700, to change 1 cent of the tax rate.
Yep.
That's the last.
It's on
the last
page 7 of the expenditure budget, at the very bottom.
Okay.
Tiny.
You know, the other pie chart that I would like to see is
17 cents.
within
Yeah.
within the staff,
There it is right there.
what is salary versus all the other that we have to pay? Like in a pie chart. You know what I mean? That we, just because like,
Say that,
well, yeah, sure, we could do that. I mean, and if
Yeah.
it's hard, I don't want her to do it if it's too hard, but like, because a lot, like dental insurance, your FICA, like, we have no control over that.
Yeah.
You know, that
We
is.
don't,
What
right,
was the total, what did you say it was,
382 and change. I don't know if it was in the, it might be in the packet, I just am not looking at
You
it.
said 32,000?
Yeah, that's the number right there.
So that's,
That's 11 cents.
that's 11.
Almost 12 cents.
Yeah.
Just if we put,
But remember, if you dump it all in, it puts us essentially in a deficit as we
Yeah,
build
it's a
the future
non-recurring
years.
Yeah, no, I'm not
Budget.
saying that I
So,
want to do all of
okay,
it.
I
I'm
was
just
like-
trying to have a clear understanding of what it means.
Means, no.
So.
I appreciate that, I just wanted to say that.
And for me, when I was looking at the budget, like when I mentioned the capital improvements, I almost, so last year, we allotted the 60,000, but then we like took 200 from the
Right.
surplus and put it in. But I almost feel like we're better as a board if we put what we actually want in the budget and then just give the surplus to the budget.
come up with the plan that we're gonna do the windows, it's gonna cost this much, let's
Well,
budget
that
for
or
it.
just, we need to say, we need to ask for 200,000 a year, but rather than, I just think it's more, I think it means much more if it's in our budget.
Yeah,
Than if we take it from the surplus.
You're talking about a kind of a sustainable capital budgeting
Yeah.
strategy. And if we could get it set at a one
I
that's,
hear you, I'm just gonna
no,
push
I
back
know,
and
I'm
say
just-
it's gonna make your tax rate go up
A lot
versus
more.
using your surplus.
Okay, so
Then-
that's where I'm wondering.
Yeah,
Does it
okay.
make a difference?
Yeah.
It
Yes.
would make your tax rate, right? Like if you put $200,000 in that last line
Yeah.
item, that's like 65,000,
Yeah.
that's,
You're gonna increase almost the 11 cents.
yeah.
No, I
For your
know,
tax rate.
but then when we take the surplus and we put 300 of it
Mm-hmm.
or whatever in, then that, I'm saying, we
Yeah, no.
took it last year
Right,
from the
and moved it.
surplus.
Yep.
Does it make a difference if we're putting it in as a line item and saying like, hey, everybody needs to realize this is what's needed to get
Well,
these
I think at
buildings?
this point it probably does, because at this point, I'm not sure if the taxpayers would, how much of a tax increase the taxpayers are willing to spend, even if they know exactly what the projects are, because
Yeah.
we do want to maintain a building, but we want to maintain our good education for our kids too. And so at what point is that not sustainable anymore?
there's another unknown that could swing either way. But as you recall, last year, our budget was basically level funded.
Oh, yes.
And all the increase, as I recall, was due to the common level of appraisal, which is
Exactly.
something that we have absolutely no
down to like
control over.
I think we reduced it
Part
by
of
3
the
cents.
state legislative action last session, Act 183, at least for this coming year, basically voted a different formula. Instead of having it town by town, it would be
Yes.
an average for the whole
Statewide.
statewide. And
wonder if
as you know,
Tara has
we
that
had
yet.
an unusually high, so I would
It was
I
high.
would like to think that we were above average last year because of the increase in value versus the assessments, that might actually help reduce the CLA impact.
Do we know the statewide CLA yet? We don't.
So there's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, there is.
And we're also facing, like all the other school boards, increases. And like the chart that Robert talked about, having to do the average students per staff member, which is lower than the New England average. But also what is lower than New England average is what we pay our teachers. And so we're caught there that if we want to have lower paid teachers, how are we going to keep the quality teachers? So and we're going to be starting the negotiation process this week. So there's just a lot of intangibles. I think we need to be thinking about how can we make us whole, and we can each define what whole means as far as doing our job and doing it well. But boy, I think it's awfully hard, we're in December, because all these uncertainties,
Right, so
where are
much
they going to be?
unknown.
One's that helps, one hurts, one's, and I would like to think the legislature is going to want to do something as far as state funding to help localities, so they don't have to take it all out on the students. So that's another thing that's up in the air.
So also keep in mind that that 17 cents is just based on the increase in your expenditure budget. It's not when we line up our tuition dollars on the revenue side and the extra
Okay.
surplus. So there's
This doesn't
chances
make
for
any
this to still decrease pre-CLA.
Right.
Also, what I hear is like the direction to add revenue from our projected surplus, just to see what it looks like. We can also provide an example of what it would look like if we cut, like we could do a side-by-side of if I cut one teaching position. What does that do? Then bring to you guys a staff to student ratio for the next meeting, like combined of students in the building to staff in the buildings. And then a pie chart of staff salary versus benefits.
Yeah, if it's easy to do.
Yeah,
That's a Tara thing.
okay. I'm gonna ask, I know, I say that like
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
something
if
I know
it's
how to
something
do.
easy,
but-
if it's not, then
And then just the wonder of what is the cap or the threshold that we don't know yet. So like, we don't have that big tax sheet, right, yet that tells us what the yield is,
Right.
what we're paying per pupil. This is just everything all put together, like this is what our revenue is and this is what our expenditures are. So there is some chances this will go down, but not probably as dramatically as we would all like it to go down.
Right, but we're still going to see an increase. We did have an 11.8%
Increase in-
insurance
yeah.
increase, so we are going to,
Right.
we have to
And we have
take
more
that.
students in 7 through 12. We've had several families move in.
Okay.
And we have sixth graders, current sixth graders, and then last year's sixth graders, now seventh graders. We only had like 2 Granville Hancock kids in that whole population.
Oh, okay.
So when we're graduating larger classes of 14 kids, and you add 14 kids to 11 kids every year to the 7
tuition.
through 12 tuition, that is going to cause some increase as well that we have not a lot of control
Yeah.
over. But we can get that refined, too.
Okay, well, I think that gives, you kind of get an overall sentiment that, we still want to explore some different, what our options are out there. It is.
We do have some time.
We do have some time. It is quite a, it is an increase. But we definitely, we support our school and we support our system. So we want to just mix the
See.
pot a little bit and see what we can make work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Is there anything else I missed in that list? Do you want to see what it looks like to just put the building stuff in there?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm not saying that I
Just to,
would
like,
want
understand
to-
it?
I'm just wondering from all of you, like, do we think as a board it
Okay.
sets
Yeah.
A better
yeah,
precedent.
like saying like, hey, this is what we truly need each year, not
Yeah.
to say
We're going to shuffle
we
funds
want
like
to
that.
use our surplus to offset it if we have surplus.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just,
Well,
60K doesn't get you far.
Right, but we
Doesn't
do,
get you far
but we
with
do
the house,
still
so.
have quite a bit. But the point was with the 65 being put in every year was that we were building up.
I know, but there's
There's too much that needs to be done now.
Right now, we've
Okay.
deferred for so long that it's going to take,
A lot.
$500,000 to $1 million to get us where we should be. And then after that, we should be building a surplus.
So to slowly be putting some pennies away in the penny jar
Yeah,
is not going to get
yeah.
us there fast enough.
That's, yeah.
The penny jar is great as extra, but it's not quite as us.
Yeah.
But I think with some good direction, actually understanding of
Correct,
what
and I
we
think
need to
this year we
do.
were off to a good start with doing the windows. We have a clear understanding of that, but now I think, okay, as we move forward, let's start to develop a more thorough budgeting plan for capital improvements.
Robert, did you have a question or
I
comment?
just want to say, play devil's advocate, and this happens every year, that the taxpayers will say, well, we've got the surplus, this is not the year to spend the money, so give it back. Which is opposed to the keep it steady every year, what you need to spend. Those are two opposing viewpoints. And I've never been able to reconcile them to the taxpayers.
But that's why I feel like if we were to change it and have the line item in there and just increase the 60,000 and then give more of the surplus to the budget, in their eyes, they might rather see that than to see us take that and put that into the capital improvement
Right,
fund directly.
If the
It's just
surplus,
more
like always,
psychological.
it's a psychological.
I would
yeah.
agree with that, but I think some of the taxpayers may not. So.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much for the first draft. And one thing that we are blessed with is that we do vote later, so we actually have some time for a lot of these numbers to come in from the state to settle down, and we can get some more solid numbers on tuitions, so we can tighten that up. So we'll definitely be working a lot more on this. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to skip the audit for now, since while Tara is on other business. Why don't we go right to the reports to the board. 6.1, the superintendent's report. Jamie was unable to join us tonight. He had a family emergency he needed to attend to.
I think in addition to this, he shared out with everybody the December 1st letter that just came, which speaks a little bit to what the yield might look like, which is lower than last year's. There's no official number in that letter. I haven't read it thoroughly, but in what he shared with us in a meeting earlier today, there's no official number, but just the prediction that it'll be lower.
And we want it high.
And we want it high, exactly. So hopefully we will have a better understanding of that in January.
Okay. And I was surprised that chronic absenteeism is being addressed so much. So obviously, I didn't realize it was as much of a problem.
It's a problem statewide and has been,
statewide,
and
okay.
nationally, ever since COVID, right? The guidelines have kind of changed on why you stay home, and now they're different again, right? Like when we came back from COVID, it was like, if you had a sniffle, don't come to school.
Right.
And now we're a little bit more back to like, if you have a fever, please don't come. If you're sick to your stomach, please don't come. Other than that, we hope you'll join us type of deal. Obviously, if you have something that requires antibiotics, you should be on antibiotics for 24 hours. But so it's a bigger goal. It's something we all identified, all the schools in the SU identified as something to be working on in all our schools. And it's something that we picked in our, I'm just going to pull this stat for you guys to read it too. In our continuous improvement plan that we talked about in August. But for example, if a student misses 2 days a month, that means they miss approximately 20 days of school a year, which can equate to about 30 or more hours of math, 60 or more hours of English language arts, and over a year of school by the time they graduate high school.
Wow.
Which is why we're all kind of trying to go after it.
Yep. Okay.
So it's just an example. And some of it, right, is like you see in his first little write-up, and I think I mentioned it in mine, is we're developing partnerships with some of our medical teams to help bring some full-service stuff to school.
Yeah, that's
Because I
great.
think it's hard for folks to get into the pediatrician and/or the dentist. We already have a partnership with Health Hub. Heaven forbid you have to cancel. Never get back in. At some other places,
Any
there's just a
dentist is
shortage.
like that, though.
I know, right? There's a shortage. Luckily, Health Hub is very supportive, but there's a shortage, right? If you go somewhere else outside. So that is kind of one of these big steps.
Okay. Great.
Is
Thank
there-
you.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments that maybe Lindy could answer?
I think the only thing that's different in number 3 of his is we have, oh, that's the wrong date. We have finalized a coffee and conversation, which will be December 9th.
Not the
From-
12th.
The 12th,
The 12th is at the Stafford.
right, at the
Art-
Rochester Cafe. So
Oh, okay.
December 9th, Rochester Cafe. Hold on. I don't want to get this time wrong. Please be in this calendar. Please be in this calendar. How do I do this? I don't know how to work this on this new phone yet. And I believe it's 11 to 12:30.
Okay, great.
So, and folks are more than welcome to join us, board members as well.
Okay, thank you.
But that's the
Can you
big,
repeat that
yeah,
date and time?
December 9th. And I believe, I'm just going to look it up because Monday, December 9th at the Rochester Cafe. Let me just really make sure that I have this right.
And the time was,
9 to 10:30. See, this is why I have to read it out of an email. I'm not there yet. Like calendar.
thank you.
Yep.
I had a request and then a suggestion. One is on, with all the additional social, emotional, professional assistance we're having, they're going to be providing for our children and families. When I read those 3 paragraphs, I was, and you could have said, okay, Bill, what did you read? And I must say, it was less than clear to me. I'm just wondering whether for the next meeting, you might just make a simple matrix that shows what they're doing, the source of the support, and whether it's once a week, twice a week, once a month, and where we're getting from, because it sounds like from this that we're getting considerable additional social emotional support to meet a rising, unfortunate demand and need for our students. So I'm a matrix guy, but it would be helpful just for us to be able to see that so that we get added up. If that request is understandable, Lindy.
Yep.
We have, as you know, last year they asked you a communications plan, and Lindy's doing it any number of ways, but on the superintendent's report, we're going to have for the first time an SU-wide newsletter.
Yes.
And it's going to highlight exciting news from each school district, and I think that's really great. The other thing I was going to ask Amy, and I should have given you a heads up on this, but I don't think it's a big deal, is Jamie's been asked by Vic Robato to join the Gifford Medical Center's Board of Directors, and he wants to make sure that there's a voice for public education, because we play such a huge role in supporting children in their health. So I thought it might be appropriate for, if there's comfort in the board, for the board just to vote and to support
Oh, absolutely.
our superintendent taking that on.
I do.
Linda, you might, my sense is that Jamie's all for it as well, but I don't think it hurts to be on record that we like the idea that he be on the Gifford Medical Center board. If you're comfortable with that, I'd make a motion or something. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the RSUD board supports our superintendent's appointment to the Gifford Medical Center board.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Thank you, Bill. Okay, principal's report?
Yep. So I just told you guys about December 9th,
Yes, thank
Now that I've got the
you.
timing down. I'll also add Wednesday night is our winter music concert at 5:30. So the kids from Stockbridge will travel over to Rochester Wednesday morning to rehearse and practice being on the stage and all that that entails. And they'll also get to have PE class in the big gym, which they're excited about because it's a PE day, and some different grade levels will get to be together, which is nice for both groups to be able to experience kind of playing with some other kiddos and not the same group. So that's definitely a highlight. Some other things I'll add, and it's kind of jumping a little bit around, just in terms of our first and second grade classroom, we have moved Linda Gendro, our literacy interventionist, into the classroom full-time. She has really thrived in that position. Faye is going to continue to support with the multi-age math classes, which will be great, but Linda will be there full-time, and we've advertised for a literacy interventionist for her replacement. In the interim, Natalie Heilman, who is our special education services provider, has picked up some of those services. So kids are still getting their literacy intervention. It just might be a different time than the preferred
Right, okay.
time. She kind of shuffled some services to make that happen.
So that person's temporary, we still have an ad out for somebody else. Okay.
Exactly. We did not have any bites when we posted for the first and second grade position. Excuse me. We had some bites, but no one lived in the US. Oh. So, like, do you know where Vermont is, much less where Rochester, Vermont is from the Philippines? It's a little bit of,
It's gonna be, and it's a little different.
it's a little
It's a
chillier.
little different.
Right. So we did not have any bites. So this feels like a great choice. That room just feels like it's in a better space. The kids seem to be thriving with Miss G, and she had a great relationship with some of them prior.
And when did that take place?
So today was the first day of that switch. Prior,
Okay, this is the first full.
yeah,
or full-
first full day. Prior to that, so since our last board meeting to before Thanksgiving, she and Faye were job sharing that. So Linda would be in there in the morning and Faye would be in there in the afternoon.
Okay.
So there is that change. And then the other thing that I'll highlight is we are, and this kind of jumps a little bit to 8.1, but we are excited for Jay Papa, our school psychologist for the whole SU, who has a background in counseling, will be joining us one day a week to provide social emotional learning for our K through 3 classrooms.
Great.
So that starts Thursday. They'll also be able to pick up some like small group counseling to help. Just typically when you have a school counselor, we have like friend groups and some other things to help navigate just how to interact with each other, things that come up. So they'll be able to start that as well. So that'll be up and running as well by, so they start this week with the classroom stuff. And then they'll start, I'm sure in the next week or so with some of the small group stuff as they start to meet kiddos.
So is the small groups going to as well be just K through 3, or will that be all grade
It could
levels?
potentially be all grade levels.
Okay, so it'd be available
We have
to
some
all grade.
predetermined ones that we'd like to see. And then as there's more, as there's more of a need, we'll add
Okay,
more.
so this is 1 day a week. Specifically on the Rochester campus, or are they
Right,
going to
so
be
there's
also
a-
provide time in the
So there's
Stockbridge
a
campus?
pre-picked out day for Rochester. It'll always be Thursdays. Stockbridge, it's just a little more flexible about what folks are great about that here. And so they will provide, because one of the things a school psychologist does is does the special education assessments for students. So they give me gaps in their schedule and I'll be like, okay, Wednesday, come on in.
Okay.
So, where they'll be working with students. And we're really focused on zones of regulation, which is, right, when I'm in the red zone and I'm really angry, this is what my body does.
Okay.
And what are some other strategies to regulate? And that's different for everyone, right? Like,
Right.
we may say breathe, but like,
Some people
What does
cannot.
that mean to
Yeah.
a 5-year-old?
Yeah.
Right. My face
Not a lot.
got really hot.
My face got really hot, exactly.
Right.
I'll be like, okay, we're gonna try this.
Yeah.
So it's not
Understanding
only
what's happening.
understanding what's happening to your body and how it feels, right? Like my body feels like this when I'm really anxious.
Yeah.
And I feel like I need to run around. Well, how do we regulate that? What tools do you need? So building those tools. and
Okay, that's really
understanding
cool.
too. Yep, so that's the first focal point, and I think that'll take us a while to get through that, because it's, if
It's a big
done
thing to-
well,
big
if
thing to
done
learn.
well, right, like that should take us a while.
And if they can learn that and have that as a solid
Exactly.
foundation, that's just going to provide them to
Yeah.
excel in life.
Yeah, I know too many adults that can't.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, we didn't have school counselors.
Feelings.
Yeah, feelings?
Right.
Yeah.
So that kind of jumps into 8.1 and crosses
great.
over,
Yes,
but
thank you.
that's the big summary of updates
That's
going
happening
on.
in,
Yeah.
okay, great. So that was Lindy's principal's report, but that also is discussion about 8.1. Is there any other questions or comments on either that discussion or the principal's report? Okay, hearing none. We will skip over the business manager's report. She gave us the budget, but I think there's something else. She usually has
Audit plus her.
yeah, her
list
little
of-
list of
yes.
what's happening this month in the business office. So you can take a look at that, and if you have any questions when she returns, we'll be able to ask her those. Policy committee. So we have some policies in front of us three of them for their second reading, and one for the first. So is the second reading when we vote on, adopt them, or do we have, no, we've got one more, okay.
They'll be fully warned for action.
Fully warned for action next month,
I believe
okay. So I don't believe, usually nothing changes between the first and second reading. I'm not, do you know of any specific changes?
So I finally was able to just go to the last meeting. I had been missing them because it was during soccer when I was coaching.
Okay.
So I'm back in it now, but.
Okay. I know that a lot of the times it was just the first line they were changing.
Yeah, or definitions, a lot of times we're adding definitions, but.
Okay. Okay, well, I would suggest reading through these policies, as we will be warning them next meeting. Please reach out to Patrick or specifically to Jamie if you do have any questions, concerns in regards to these, so we can get them addressed if there didn't need to be before next meeting. Okay, so 5.6, Farm to School and Outdoor Education Task Force.
Yep, so we just.
I thought we shortened the name of that.
Maybe
I
you
don't
want
know,
an
because I have to
acronym.
be honest with you.
Yeah, what's the-
Normally.
Food and Forest, maybe?
Sure. We continue to meet monthly.
Wonderful.
I will say that we submitted for November 14th a farm to school grant application. So we're waiting to hear back on that. We also connected with Vital Communities and did receive some grant funds. With that, they actually meet tomorrow afternoon.
Great.
As a group at 2. So they will be discussing what to do with that, with their plan. And right now, some of the plans include like a seed library and also incorporating library class to some of these activities, as well as, there was some other, bringing in like guest chefs to do work with some
Yeah.
kids, and then also the garden
And
revitalization.
maybe some different field trips, like
Yeah.
we were trying to talk about the garden, and it's like, okay, well, what are we trying to accomplish with the garden?
Right.
And with that, maybe growing like each year growing something different too, and learning more about a specific crop, say, and then maybe having a field trip based around that, and then being able to take it back to here and using it. stuff like that, so.
Nice. When we were listening to Ms. Braun talk about her tea last,
Yeah.
I was
Right.
wondering, could one of the beds be for her
I
tea?
think that is the
Absolutely,
plan.
that
You
is,
know,
that
like,
was part of what we were discussing.
perennial.
And we really want to bring her into the conversation more.
Yeah.
With a lot of this, but.
Cool, well, I like this work. I think it's something
Yeah.
that's important, and it rounds kids out, I think, so. Absolutely. Is there any other questions about 6.5, the Farm to School and Outdoor Education Task Force, the Food and Forest?
Food and forest. I like it.
Food and
Farm, food and forest.
Farm, food, and, right, because
three
farm is
Fs.
the animals, Farm, Food, and Forest Task Force.
F3.
F3. I like it. F3.
Yep. Okay, great. There's no further questions, and let's go on to the celebration of learning.
Yeah, so if Kevin can pull up the slideshow I shared. So this comes from, it's a little bit of a summary. There are some sixth graders who are going to come present to you, but they wanted to tease you first, I guess is the way I put it.
Give us a teaser?
A teaser, because not all of them are done yet. And they want you to see all the finished products when it's done.
Okay.
So, but it's important to kind of understand the overview. So each campus has kind of taken a different approach. In Rochester, it's been more community projects. So if you want to go to the next slide. So basically they identify some area they'd like to see in their see a change in their school or their school community. They write a proposal letter, usually to myself and Jamie, of what that change would entail. How much is it going to cost? What they're looking forward to doing.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And then other community members. And Mr. First has done a great job of pulling in community members to work on them. Currently, the biggest one, give a full, we're getting a new sign at Rochester. They're working with Jimmy Brown.
Oh, yes, yes.
And they've designed a new Rochester Elementary sign that'll go on the building. And they're going to make it with him. So they've learned about the whole
Wow,
sign
that's
making
cool.
process, what it entails, seen some examples of his work. He's come in and done some. So that's just one example. Another is, if we go to the next slide, they made this video, which I did link in so everybody could see. Feels like it's good energy now that the vote passed. But they worked with Rob Gardner and others to create, one of the things they felt strongly about was that the town takes over the high school. This was pre the vote. So they made a video highlighting just kind of the value for them as kids of what it could be.
Oh, that's cool.
Some other things have been from organizing playground cleanup and upgrades to designing and painting a mural in the school hallway. So if we want,
That's cool.
if we click
And
on
that's
that
an
video.
interest of kids, I think, definitely to design a mural or do
Oh
something
yeah,
in the
they're pretty.
hallway.
They do not like the white walls, which I'm full on board with. Did it open? Okay. I was like, hopefully I hyperlinked this the right way. Checking my test skills, it's not. Oh, okay. I was like, hopefully I did it
You're
the right
like, is
way.
it really working?
Well, you gotta make sure the sharing's on and all the things.
There we go. Something's happening.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I wasn't looking ahead of myself. In fact, I was looking at this building. I know it's been here for a while. I just wish it could go to better use.
I'm okay, and that building right there is the high school.
Oh, I didn't know this used to be a high school. I'm new to the neighborhood.
Well, it's nice to meet you. And can I tell you more about this building?
Sure, it never hurts to take a little break from running.
Hey,
I caught up to you. You're a really fast runner. Oh, who's your new friend?
Oh, this is just a person working on the high school repurposing project.
Wow, that's really cool. Do you have any flyers?
Yeah, here you go.
Wow, it says the high school was built in 1974, but a couple of years ago it shut down 2018. The repurposing crew came to life and now they are trying to put it to a good use. The high school will include a makerspace, Arts and Learning Center, Adult Day Center, Business Incubator, Early Childhood Center with childcare, Outdoor Recreation Center, and even a teen center. Wow, that's a lot of useful things in one building.
Don't forget about the Quinton Senior Center and places for businesses to rent.
And I was just wondering, who owns the high school?
The high school is owned by the Rochester-Stockbridge Unified School District.
Oh, so how can we support it?
By voting to sell it to the town for $1 on November 5th. Spread the word. And if you want to get involved, please do.
And I just have one more question. Who supports the high school repurposing group?
We do!
Good job. Oh my goodness.
So that's just one example. I wanted to show it before, but they were like, no, please don't do it until after the vote. So that's just one example of one of the community projects and different ways that they're working on it. And they're really enjoying all this work. In fact, I think I have 3 letters waiting for me just from today to see something that they want to change, which is great.
Yeah, to get involved in the community.
It is, and it's
To
a
actually
little
show that
like
you can make a difference.
having a student council without having one, right? Like these are all student-generated ideas, and they work on them during humanities. So that has been really great. So they want to come and do like a full, like when all the projects are done.
Okay.
Deal, which is gladly we'd love to see them. If you go to the next slide, and I think this kind of counts a little bit as like that capstone or passion project. Here in Stockbridge, 6th graders have identified a passion project that they're gonna explore in depth, and they've written these letters of what it's gonna look like. So some examples is we have one student who's changing up his school day to be able to, he competes in mountain bike races and snowboarding competitions. So he wrote a whole proposal about like how this could count as some of his school day for PE credit and for some other things. And showed some videos of all the different ways that he uses, and some days he's gone and like learned how to be at the bike shop and how to do all the changes on his bike on his own and work with a bike mechanic, and other days it's working in the snowboarding shop. So it was one of those things, like when we look at chronic absenteeism, it wasn't not coming to school because we weren't interested, but it was like the mountain is much more appealing than this. How can we balance it? So that's how he developed his passion project. Yeah. We have another student who's doing like an internship or assistant teaching in our preschool. So they've gone in and done like observations and gotten to know the kids with reading buddies and some other things, and now they're gonna help teach circle time and some other tabletop activities. So they've been journaling their experiences. They wanted to point out that the journaling was not just by writing, but also through videos and photos. And then they're going to present those out in the spring and talk about different ways that they could expand upon them. So.
Yeah, it's for them to find their interest, their passion, and really explore how they could, I mean, kind of make a living at it.
Right.
Essentially, this child with the snowboarding is how can I still be successful in my day and meet my obligations for schoolwork and for school.
Well, and I think that says a lot too when I think overall in the past, not so much now, but in the past it was like knowing or wanting to do other things was frowned upon,
Right.
you know, and it wasn't supported by the school.
Right.
But to now be supported
Right.
by the school, especially before you move into higher education, it's like,
Which I think would help you be more passionate about going out and creating your own business. Because you found something that you enjoy, and you've been taught how to do it successfully and how to bring knowledge into it. And
And both examples that I gave, coming to school was not high on the priority list when I look at chronic absenteeism. Now that is not, I mean, the snowboarder, mountain biker, we've missed days, but we've been at the mountain, right?
Yeah.
Journaling, writing more than normal if we were in school. Other person, chronically late, would like show up at 11 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock in the morning. And it was like, well, at least we got to school. now at school no later than 8:30 every day. Like, so we're making progress. So
Yeah,
it's a good
yeah.
way to hook some kids that, you're right, like,
Yeah.
that the traditional math, but still
Yeah.
build on those skills.
And I feel for some of those individuals, by doing that, you're giving them confidence.
Yeah.
Like, just because they don't do well in a classroom, doesn't mean they shouldn't be confident in what they are good at.
And they're gonna have to present it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
they're a little concerned
No, I
about that
think it's
present
great.
part.
Yeah.
We're kind of building that one as we go, but
Yeah, yeah.
that's what's cool about it.
Yeah.
So those are kind of two like highlights where both groups were like, we'll come, but when it's done. And I was like, but it's really cool what you're doing now. Like, I
Yeah.
think the early is just as important as
Oh,
the
absolutely.
end result.
Absolutely. Or
Yeah.
the soup before, when it's just got all the ingredients laid out.
That's what it feels like
before-
right now.
Yeah, before it's come down. Well, wonderful. Great. Does anybody have any questions or comments on Celebration of Learning?
No, it's all good.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so we did 8.1, updates regarding the Rochester Elementary Schools. So 8.2, the Board Development Series, we did touch on some of the parts of this as we were looking through the budget. So I think this was a timely article to read and to refer back to. I definitely have some questions around page 6 and how the new CLA calculation is going to actually really work. Because, I'm a math and I want to see X times Y equals Z divided by CLA equals. So I'll be encouraged to hear that from Tara once she, once we're there, I think,
What's
in
the-
our budget.
Why is that change so impactful, I guess, to the equation?
Right, and how is it going to impact our budget? Is it going to
Yeah,
have a
I agree.
large?
And I agree, and I also have a question on page 7, the exhibit about estimated excess spending threshold. I mean,
Right.
they have a starting figure of statewide average FY '25 ed spending at a little over $13,000, or our tuition rate averages around $21,000, $22,000. So I don't have a clue where that comes from, but that's so low that when you add the 18%, or 118% to come up with your threshold, that excess spending threshold, that's where Robert was saying, 16,000, are you kidding me? So
Right.
that's another thing that I think, I don't think we should lose any sleep over it, but we need to be aware that we're going to have an excess spending threshold. We need to be aware of it sooner than later. Amy, as you said, we're blessed by having our annual town meeting in May and not in March.
This is what it's.
I was wondering whether anybody had a suggestion for a board development
Statewide averages.
project or something that we
That
could
is what this is.
discuss briefly in our
That is the number.
January meeting. I had an idea, but I don't want to monopolize anything, so does anybody have an article they read or a subject that we might learn something by sharing that approach or that review?
We're anxiously awaiting your suggestion.
Anyway, I'm been monitoring the Commission on the Future of Vermont Public Education, and they've got a commission, and then they've got 3 committees, a steering committee, a public communication committee, and a finance committee, and I've been really going after the finance committee. Anyway, they finally came up with a draft report, and they were going to vote on it today, but there was enough changes in it. This is a report that the legislature mandated, again, by this Act 183 last session, to give guidance to the legislature how they can, almost mission impossible, how to really help or reduce the burden on taxpayers, but do it in a responsible, meaningful way without having unintended consequences. And so they're going to have another draft that will be out, and I thought that one will, the vote on, it only has, I don't know, 12 pages or something, might be something that we might want to take a look at.
Yeah, I think so.
Again, they're not making specific, saying, you should do this, you should do that. They're basically saying, here's the criteria which we think you should maintain so you don't have negative consequences or externalities. And then basically they must have 25 different ideas about possible policies to move forward on this. Not necessarily they agree with any of them, but to give an idea of what's been discussed. So
okay.
the legislature could understand that they're covering all the bases, they need more data. But I thought it was interesting reading, so that might be something that maybe
Yeah,
I could get to you after that vote if you like it, and we
I
can
think
put
that
it
would
in
be
our
good
packet.
to, helps us keep up on what's going
Yeah.
on out there, and it gives us something that we have all read and can discuss if we are completely lost in what they're saying.
It's a good committee because they've got representation from not only the legislature, and the Agency of Education, and the tax department, but also all the interest groups, including independent schools as well as Vermont boards, public education boards, the superintendents, the Principals Association, Tara's group, the business managers are in there. So it's
Okay.
and they've been going around the state having a listening tour. So I think I've been learning a lot from it, and I think we'll all learn a little something from that if you want to go ahead with that.
Yeah, I'd like that.
Is that okay?
That works for me, and the rest of the board members
All
are
right.
in? Okay, well, we'll await you forwarding that to us then. Thank you,
Thanks.
Bill. Okay, 8.3, the RSUD Community Engagement Task Force Action Membership. So Lindy does have a list of people who have volunteered. I'm going to pass it on, I already have one. Volunteered, take a look at the members. We do fulfill all positions that we had hoped for. I think it looks like a good group. And this is going to be led by?
Suzette Ballard.
Suzette.
Ballard is going to be our facilitator. It'll start after the new year. And
Ooh, you forgot you volunteered, huh?
I want nothing to do with it now.
yeah,
Okay. No, that's, great. So we just need a motion to approve the slate of membership for the task force.
So moved.
Second.
Great. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 set.
And any opposed? Okay.
I don't know if you guys want me to do it.
Oh, I definitely do.
No,
Yes.
that's,
You're good. Okay.
Now, wait a
So
second.
now we are going
Did somebody have a
to-
knife in your back? You
Loop back to-
enthusiastically wanted
yeah.
to do it.
Okay, great. We're going
know.
to loop back to 6.3, the business manager's report, and then 9.2, the audit.
he raises my blood pressure.
So you have my report. It just outlines what's happening at the business office during the month of December, in addition to budget building. I did not receive from the agency, as we discussed earlier, the preliminary equalized pupil, so we're still waiting. Tax letter was released. You'll see this month is the first month since the beginning of this fiscal year, since we got a food service director, that there's actually a line item for me to do in the school food authority role, which I'm still responsible to file our financial statements with the Agency of Education, so that's due on December 9th. But otherwise, I'll answer any questions on what's happening in the business world, or business office world, I should say. No.
No questions, thank you. You handled it just great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was smaller but bigger at the same time.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, not a request from the chair. Just one more question on the budget. Tara, you talked about the ending balance was a surplus of $385,000 and change or something like that. In our FY85 current budget, we're going to tap 100,000. Now, did that 100,000 come from that 385, or is that 385 over and above the 100,000?
That's already been accounted for in the fund
Already,
balance.
so we are starting with a unallocated.
Unassigned
385.
fund balance.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Unassigned fund balance. Great. Okay.
I don't know if the audit's in the packet.
It's not, I didn't have Christie put it in.
Okay.
It's too much to put this entire file
Oh, right.
in your board packet.
Yeah, please don't. Please don't.
It'll be available on our website as soon as I release it and you accept it.
Okay.
So yes. So if you look at the audit draft itself, what you just asked me, Bill, on page, let me get to your report here. So when you're home and you want to look at this. Or actually, I did actually put it in the email, Calvin, to the FCU conference. So if you wanted to put it on the screen.
Yeah, I saw it on page 7.
Yeah, so on page 13 of the audit is the actual fund balance. So it's 14 technically written papers, but 13 on the PDF. The assigned fund balance is that 100,000. So that's that offsetting revenue that we already have accounted for. So then that unassigned fund balance comes to that $382,726, which is what we have to use, again, to either go as offsetting revenue as you've done in the past, but also to ask your voters to allow you to put those funds into reserve funds.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So overall, the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance, that's page 14, you'll see that the fiscal year '24 had a general fund surplus of $248,489. The fund balance at the beginning of the fiscal year was $567,630. We have operating transfers out of $333,393, which leaves us a general fund balance at the close of fiscal year '24 of $482,726. Again, you back out the 100,000, that gives us that $382,726 that's still available.
Okay.
Page 46 of the schedule is the schedule of revenues expenditures as compared to budgets. Just a reminder, when you're looking at that, when we build our revenue budget and we use a fund balance, we don't actually collect that again. So it doesn't show up as a revenue received, because then that would be double dipping. It's basically the balance you had left in your checkbook that we're still using.
Yep,
So
okay.
it doesn't actually show up as an additional revenue. So when you're looking at your budget to actuals, you will see there is no $100,000 surplus transfer.
Okay.
Because it's already in that fund balance and already accounted for.
Okay. Makes
So
sense.
this part of the audit that I'm asking you to accept tonight is only the financial statement portion of the audit. Because Rochester-Stockbridge Unified District received more than $750,000 of federal funding in fiscal year '24, you do require a single audit. That's in state mandates and federal mandates. And that was a result of the HVAC grants that we received.
Right.
So that kicks you up over that threshold. So there will be a second portion of this audit. Once that's completed by the auditors, I'll come back to you and ask you to accept the single audit once they've done that part of it. So what I'm asking you to accept tonight is just the financial statement audit.
Excellent. Well, I'd make a motion to accept the financial statement audit as presented.
I so move.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So moved.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, great. We are now down to 10, new hires resignations.
I already gave you the update about the first and second grade position. Caitlin Bowen did submit hers, I can't remember if I told you this or not, so I'm gonna say it again. Okay, no?
No.
Okay, timing is not. Did submit her resignation as our preschool paraeducator in Rochester. We have an interview scheduled for tomorrow for that position, so we should fill that. Her last day was the Tuesday before Thanksgiving.
Okay.
So, and that is it.
Okay. All right, do we have any public comment?
A board comment. We had talked about in the past of doing more of a U setting.
This got set up before I got back from my admin meeting.
Okay,
I apologize.
that's.
Yeah, but I
just-
agree, 'cause
just
it's like-
reminding.
Because I
It's
went, yeah.
our
No,
necks
I
are
didn't
getting-
forget, but it was already,
Thank you.
like this when I got here from another meeting.
Okay. Okay, so, executive session to discuss a real estate matter.
Who are you gonna invite in?
We invite our administration in and Taylor,
Yep.
our business manager.
Yes, you have to make a motion to go in.
Okay,
And then,
great, I make a motion to go. Sorry, I thought that's what I was doing. Okay, great, so I make a motion to enter executive session to discuss a real estate matter, and I invite our administration and our business manager.
So, second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.